Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We are excited to share the following news. Prince Andrew rushes back to London after King Charles cuts off all money and titles. A source familiar with the circumstances has said that Prince Andrew has swiftly returned to London while King Charles has terminated all connections with the United Kingdom. The ambiance inside the vehicle was reportedly as tumultuous as the weather prevailing over the city as the Black Range Rover entered the gates of Buckingham Palace under a slate-gray sky. Witnesses described Prince Andrew, Duke of York, as possessing a tense and inscrutable facial expression. Despite being a quick and resounding re-entry into the core of the British monarchy, this was not a true homecoming in any sense. Numerous senior palace insiders have said that this arrival is the climax of a relationship between the king and his younger brother that has been deteriorating for several years. Reports circulating in Westminster and the city indicate that King Charles III has definitively decided to terminate the private financial support that has enabled the Duke of York to sustain his lifestyle since his withdrawal from public life. The consequences are significant. Due to the dedication of the late Queen Elizabeth II and the financial mechanisms of the Crown Prince Andrew has been able to operate inside the secure confines of the institution for many decades. Nevertheless, the period of protection has ended. The Duke is in a precarious situation due to the suspected cessation of his annual payment and the withdrawal of his last ceremonial titles. This is not only a financial dispute. It signifies the dissolution of a regal life, the last act in the gradual decline of a man once known as the Golden Boy of the Windsor lineage. An ultimatum from the monarch on the pressing crisis. Following the transition of power, the hostility between King Charles and Prince Andrew has escalated, culminating in overt violence between them. The king's objective for a streamlined monarchy, emphasizing cost-effectiveness and public service above the extensive network of minor royals and associates characteristic of previous eras, seems to be the impetus for this transformation. This week, Buckingham Palace issued a statement that set the tone for the current stalemate, while it formally refrained from addressing the royal family's private financial issues. The declaration indicated that the king had initiated the formal process of revoking the style, titles, and honors of his younger brother. This is a bureaucratic disassociation that precedes the financial separation. Camilla Tominey, an experienced royal critic, has said that the tensions within the royal family have escalated to unprecedented levels. Upon receiving notification that the private funding from the Duchy of Lancaster, which include expenses for his security personnel and property maintenance, would be terminated, Prince Andrew allegedly traveled to London specifically to confront the king. This is based on reports. The Duke has relied significantly on these riches to maintain the facade of his former status. The illusion is ending at this moment. The matter that has royal watchers captivated is a simple one. What motivated the king to make such a bold and resolute decision? Was it a really novel revelation, or only the exhaustion of the patience that sibling relationships necessitate? Moreover, how would Andrew, a man who has experienced only adoration and affluence since his birth in 1960, navigate the harsh realities of the private sector? The Golden Boy. A life abounding with highly anticipated occurrences. To understand the magnitude of Prince Andrew's collapse, one must revisit the apex of his career. Andrew Albert Christian Edward, the first child born to a reigning king in almost a century, was born on February 19, 1960. He was the third offspring of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. However, he was the first progeny to be born to a queen. In a kingdom transitioning from the post-war era to the dynamic 60s, his arrival infused the situation with renewed vigor. Conversely, Andrew was the spare imbued with vivacity, Unlike Charles, who was encumbered from birth by the formidable obligations of royalty, or Anne, who established a role characterized by austere pragmatism. It was well acknowledged that he was the Queen's favorite due to his charm, exuberance, and self-assurance. He had an innate confidence indicative of someone certain in his role within his endeavors. His father, Prince Philip, formulated the stringent curriculum that he adhered to throughout his education. The institution referred to as Gordonstoun, situated in Scotland, was infamous for its substandard living conditions, frigid baths, and its motto, plus est en vous, meaning there is more in you. Notwithstanding Charles's renowned aversion to the institution which he termed colditz in kilts, Andrew managed to thrive there. Philip believed that hardship was the most effective means of character development. During that moment, instructors described a young prince who was exuberant, enthusiastic, and even impudent. Although he was not a prominent figure in academia, he was well regarded due to his social acumen and physical robustness. Due to his poise, presenting skills, and capacity to navigate elite social circles, he was destined to dominate. Academic scores were not as significant to him as they ultimately were. After finishing his tenure at Gordonstoun, Andrew subsequently enrolled in the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth. While this tradition was prevalent in Andrew's family, he ultimately came to see it as a genuine vocation. During the Falklands War in 1982, the prince did not evade the fight. The Queen insisted that her son be let to enlist in the military against the counsel of many government officials who expressed concerns over his safety. To safeguard the aircraft carrier, HMS Invincible, Andrew piloted Sea King helicopters on perilous sorties. He further functioned as a decoy for Exocet missiles. His status as a true war hero was indisputable upon his return to Portsmouth, when he was greeted with applause from a grateful nation arose in his lips. He was not only gorgeous and fearless, but also the most eligible bachelor worldwide. He was the Randy Andy of sensational journalism. At one point in time, he was the epitome of a royal. In addition to being a prominent figure in British public life, he attained the rank of commander and served in several capacities as a trade envoy. However, it is possible that the roots of his downfall were planted during this period of unrestrained adoration. In addition to praising him, the system offered him protection, which resulted in the development of a feeling of entitlement that would later come into conflict with the truth. Regarding the Royal Lodge dispute, there is an architecture of privilege. The Royal Lodge, which is located in Windsor Great Park and has a Grade 2 listing, is in the epicenter of the ongoing financial conflict. Not only is this a home, but it is also a representation of Andrew's social standing. 30 rooms, expansive gardens, and a history steeped in royal heritage are all features of the lodge, which was once the residence of Queen Elizabeth, sometimes known as the Queen Mother. In the early 2000s, Andrew made a one-time payment and signed a lease on the property that was for a period of 75 years. However, the lease had a number of conditions. It costs an enormous amount of money to keep such a historic building in good condition. Each year, the costs associated with history preservation, roof repairs, and damp proofing may amount to hundreds of thousands of pounds. In addition, in order for the property to continue to be livable, it is necessary to have a committed crew consisting of gardeners, housekeepers, and estate managers. In his explanation, royal historian Robert Lacey says, "This is what people understand when they speak about financial assistance. There is more to it than just putting money into a bank account for the purpose of spending it. The ecology as a whole is present. However, the private allowances from the monarch support the royal lifestyle, which includes the staff travel and, most importantly, security. The sovereign grant is responsible for covering official tasks. The line item that continues to generate the greatest debate is security. Andrew's security has been privately paid ever since he lost his official police protection, which is a privilege that is only granted to working royals. It is said that the late Queen and King Charles had been the ones who provided funding for Andrew's security. With only one bill, it is predicted that the yearly cost would reach into the millions. The withdrawal of this assistance by Charles has presented Andrew with a difficult choice. Either he must pay for his own armed guards, or he must leave the royal lodge in order to relocate to a smaller house that is more safe, such as Frogmore Cottage. People get the impression that Andrew is being obstinate in his desire to cling to the trappings of his previous life since he has refused to quit the lodge. However, if the king does not provide financial support, the lease has the potential to become an albatross, causing him to fall into bankruptcy. The unraveling Epstein and the interview that completely transformed everything. Significantly before the implementation of the budget cutbacks, Prince Andrew's reputation started to gradually deteriorate. His previous relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sexual offender, is the source of this issue. In the 1990s, when they were both immersed in a social environment that was a mixture of high society, high finance, and charity, their paths intersected. Despite Epstein's first conviction in 2008, Andrew continued to spend time with him for a number of years, including meals, shooting weekends, and vacations. This was a choice that Andrew subsequently referred to as a mistake, but which detractors referred to as a catastrophic loss in judgment on his part. Over the course of many years, the issue remained dormant. However, in 2019, the Me Too movement and Epstein's arrest placed the network of the financiers under close scrutiny. Within a short period of time, Andrew's relationship went from being a mere footnote to being a headline. The breaking of the dam brought about the turning point, which occurred on November 16, 2019. A sit-down interview with the BBC's Newsnight, which is anchored by Emily Maitlis, was something that Andrew consented to perform in an effort to clear his reputation. In spite of the fact that it was supposed to be a tale of redemption, it turned out to be a public suicide of his reputation on television. As soon as the first few minutes of the performance began, the mood in the drawing room of Buckingham Palace was oppressive. Andrew had the impression of being inflexible, and his responses were both scripted and strange. Andrew provided responses that failed to make sense to the general public when he was challenged with charges made by Virginia Giuffre that she had been trafficked to him when she was a kid. According to him, Giuffre's allegations that he was sweating on a dance floor were not plausible since he suffered from a physical condition that was brought on by an adrenaline overload that occurred during the Falklands War. An unremarkable alibi that quickly became a joke was his assertion that he was at a Pizza Express in Woking on the night in issue. According to Mark Borkowski, a specialist in public relations, it was a masterclass in how poorly to manage a crisis. It was clear that he had no compassion for Epstein's victims. It seemed as if he was more preoccupied with the particulars of the circumstance than the ethical weight of the scenario. The response from the general population was immediate and harsh. In a matter of days, the consequences were apparent. Businesses, charitable organizations, and educational institutions that had wanted the Duke's support hurriedly severed their relations with him. The palace presented the step back from public obligations that they announced as being transitory, a time of cooling down. However, those who were on the inside were aware of the reality the door had completely shut. In an effort to strike a balance between her affection for her son and her obligation to the crown, the Queen had essentially terminated his employment. Concerning Giuffre versus Prince Andrew, the legal maze that is compounding. The harm to the reputation was the legal case that Virginia Giuffre brought against the defendant in the state of New York. The lawsuit, which was known as Giuffre versus Prince Andrew, brought the monarchy into the shady workings of the judicial system in the United States. Over the course of many months, Andrew's legal team made several attempts to dismiss the case on technical grounds, relying on allegations of improper serving of documents or contesting the court's jurisdiction. Keeping the issue at the forefront of the news, the international press scrutinized each and every action. It was an unsuccessful strategist. The level of pressure grew intolerable as the matter progressed into the discovery phase, which would have required Andrew to give a deposition while under oath over the course of the investigation. The parties came to an agreement in February of 2022. Despite the fact that the payment did not include any acknowledgement of culpability, the appearance was very damaging. An amount that is said to be more than £12 million was agreed upon by Andrew to be paid to Giuffre and her charitable organization. It has been alleged that the late Queen provided funding for a significant portion of this, which raises disconcerting issues about the use of private royal riches to suppress an accusation of sexual assault. David Banks, a legal expert, makes the observation that while the settlement addressed the legal danger, it did not restore confidence. A settlement of such scale is sometimes regarded as an admission by the court of public opinion that the defendant cannot afford for the truth to be challenged in court. This is because the public opinion is a court of public opinion. Although it brought an end to the case, it also solidified his position as a pariah. After the settlement was reached, the process of removing his military titles was considered complete. It was taken away from him because he was the colonel of the Grenadier Guards, a post that he treasured. It was no longer appropriate to refer to him as His Royal Highness in any official capacity. His name was simply Andrew, and he held the title of Duke of York, which was now associated with more notoriety than distinction. The collapse of the business, which marked the end of Pitch Place. Prior to his collapse, Andrew had made an effort to establish himself as the entrepreneur prince. His flagship program, Pitch-a-Palace, was intended to facilitate connections between companies in the technology sector and investors from across the world. It was a true success for a few years, during which time it hosted events at St. James's Palace and expanded to other regions including China, the Middle East, and other places. There was, however, an inextricable connection between the platform and his own brand. As soon as the brand became poisonous, the company went out of business. Filings made by corporations in the years 2024 and 2025 present a picture of an empire that is winding down. In the aftermath of the Newsnight catastrophe, major partners such as KPMG, Standard Chartered, and AstraZeneca withdrew their sponsorship. The resignations of the board of directors came in waves. By the year 2025, the effort had been officially terminated. Additionally, his business connections in China were subject to close examination besides. There have been rumors making the rounds about his links to political leaders such as Yang Tangbo and other actors who are politically sensitive. Despite the fact that Andrew denied any wrongdoing, the mere notion that a member of the royal family may be using his position for personal benefit or serving as an unofficial conduit for foreign influence was enough to cause the security services to get concerned. Companies House has just received papers that demonstrate the ultimate liquidation of firms owned by Andrew. The transfer of assets, the settlement of debts, and the removal of firms from the register have all taken place. This is the administrative imprint of a guy whose professional life has been a complete and utter sham. Andrew does not have a product to offer since he does not have the platform of the monarchy. The precedent set by the Constitution, taking away the titles. Both the measures that King Charles took on October 30th, 2025, and the following letters patent that were granted in November indicate a significant constitutional movement that has the potential to be historic. Andrew's expulsion from his position is unprecedented despite the fact that royals have lost their titles in the past, often as a result of treason or marriages that were not approved. It is a termination for moral reasons. It was reaffirmed in the official notice that was published in the London Gazette that the titles Prince and His Royal Highness would no longer be used in official capacities. The king has made use of the full weight of the royal prerogative to guarantee that Andrew is unable to exploit these titles to gain recognition or to gain a business benefit. This is despite the fact that he is still a prince of the blood by birth. This establishes a precedent for the future, says Dr. Catherine Haddon, a specialist knowledgeable in constitutional law. It is a signal that royal rank is not a birthright that is unrestricted. Rather, it is a privilege that is reliant on behavior. Through the implementation of accountability, King Charles is bringing the institution into the contemporary era. The company will fire you if you do any harm to it. For all intents and purposes, this action transforms Andrew into a private citizen. It is no longer going to be the case that the state will show him respect. Due to the fact that he will not be asked to attend formal events, he will not be bowed to at such events. It is impossible to overestimate the psychological effect that this downgrade will have on a man who has held the position of royalty for the last 65 years. From allowance to uncertainty. The realities of the financial situation. Now Andrew must confront the harsh realities of his new existence. Because he does not receive the sovereign grant or the Duchy of Lancaster stipend, his sources of income are unknown and are expected to decrease in the future. The pension that he receives from the Royal Navy is not very generous. It is probably somewhere between £20,000 and £30,000 per year. According to the Queen, he has inherited some fortune from his parents. Nevertheless, the specifics of the Queen's inheritance will be kept confidential. The existence of investment portfolios and trusts that were created many years ago has been the subject of rumors, but are they sufficient to maintain a lifestyle that costs millions of dollars annually? It is the Royal Lodge that has suffered the most as a result of this new arithmetic. In the event that Andrew is unable to pay for the maintenance and the security, he will be in violation of his lease. It is the responsibility of the Crown Estate, which is the legal owner of the land, to guarantee that the asset is preserved in a safe and secure manner. Eviction or a surrender of the lease via negotiation is not an option if Andrew is unable to pay the rent. This monetary constraint is the most powerful weapon that the king has. This is something that Charles is aware of, since Andrew is unable to wage a public relations campaign without funding. This is the king's way of pushing his brother into submission and eventually into oblivion. He is doing this by cutting the purse strings. The human cost of a breakup of a family. There is a narrative of a family that has been broken apart that lies beyond the headlines and the court files. From the beginning, Charles and Andrew's relationship has been a complicated one, with Andrew being the obedient heir and Charles being the indulgent spare. On the other hand, they argue that the rift is now complete. One has heard that King Charles is exhausted. In addition to managing a changing Britain, his primary concerns include the future of the monarchy, Prince William and the Princess of Wales, and the future of the United Kingdom. Andrew is a symbol of the past which Charles is eager to rid himself of. This includes the scandals, the entitlement, and the lack of responsibility on his part. Apparently, Andrew is experiencing a sense of betrayal at this moment. It is his belief that he has been used as a scapegoat and that he has been punished unduly for mistakes in judgment while other members of the family have managed to weather their own difficulties. It was a desperate effort to be heard to plead to the brother who is now his king, and his surprise arrival in London, which occurred during the storming of the city, was a result of this. However, it seems that the king's determination has become more resolute. The termination of financial assistance is not a strategy for engagement in negotiation. Rather, it is a definitive decision. Concluding remarks regarding the Duke of Twilight. In the process of withdrawing back behind the walls of the Royal Lodge or whatever property he ultimately chooses to occupy, Prince Andrew does so as a weakened figure. It is now possible to read a different version of his life story. The battle hero and the favorite of the Queen has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and the consequences of it. The official documents bear witness to the transition, which includes the removal of the titles, the dissolution of the firms, the resolution of the litigation, and the cessation of the financial support. The only thing that is left is a guy in his mid-60s who is cut off from the institution that defined him and who is contemplating a future that will be irrelevant. It is inevitable that the monarchy will proceed. By making it very obvious that the existence of the crown is contingent upon its integrity, King Charles has made it abundantly evident that integrity cannot coexist with the scandals that have been involving the Duke of York. There is a possibility that Andrew's last shout was the storming of London, a final act of defiance before the quiet of private life came to take over. Do you have any thoughts? Was it appropriate for King Charles to cut off all financial links? Or did the penalty go beyond what was required for the crime? Does this herald the beginning of a new age in which the British monarchy will be more ruthless? In the comments section below, please share your ideas. We are interested in hearing your viewpoint on this historic change in royal power. According to the Royal Desk's reporting, subscribing to our channel and clicking the video link that appears on your screen will allow you to see our unique documentary on the history of the Royal Lodge, which will provide you with a more in-depth perspective on the future of the government. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.